Hi, this is Fady from Harvey Productions and welcome to another video. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Grace M103 channel strip. This is a microphone preamp, EQ, and a compressor released by Grace Design, which I absolutely love what they've done with this. Let me tell you first why I ended up going with that direction. Obviously, I have a lot of pre's in here. I have a bunch of 1073s from Heritage Audio. I have the Warm Audio 412s, Vintech Audio. I have the 610. But I was really looking for is something that is super transparent, super clean, has no coloration whatsoever, and is just emphasize whatever the source is and whatever the mic that I'm using is. So in this scenario, for example, I use the Neumann U67 as my lead vocal mic. It's probably on most of my vocals. I have a U89 as well that I use here and there, but the 67 tends to win almost every time. Okay, well, 67 is a tube mic. It has a little bit of a character, but I love how it sounds. And then sometimes when I was tracking vocalists and running a 67 through the 1073, which I love how it sounds in a lot of sources, but it was not what I was going for because it added a little bit of that grit and the drive from the 1073, which is what they're well known for. But I'm recording a classical piece, or I want something that is super clean with no overdrive to it, then it was not my favorite in those scenarios. Same for the 610, because you're using a tube pre and then using a tube mic, you end up with a little bit too much saturation, which is great for if that's what you're going for. Like when I use the 67 as my overheads or room mic, I actually want that saturation in the grid, so I run it through the 1073 or the 610. But I was looking for something kind of mimics the SSLs, basically, or some of the APIs, which are super clean, super transparent. It captures it as is. It doesn't add any more color to it, and it complements the mic without adding more to it. So that's when I started looking at the Grace, because I used their M908 and I've used a couple of their stuff before and really loved them, and very, very high quality. Then I tested the M103, this one, which blew my mind away. Like, just for a fact, it blew my mind away. So the unit, it's a pretty standard channel strip. I mean, it has a high input, high Z gain, as you guys can see in the video. It has a gain knob, which goes all the way to 65 decibel of gain. It has a phantom power on and off. It has the ribbon feature. Let's talk about this for just a second. So really, really cool, because I don't think I've seen these in other pre's, which it basically deactivates the circuit of the phantom power, so you don't have to worry about this, but it also gives you, it works like a cloud lifter. And if any of us familiar with that, with ribbon mics, sometimes the SM7B, they're quieter sources. And then they need, normally when I use my Cascade Fatheads ribbon mics, I run them through a cloud lifter, and then the cloud lifter goes, which adds about 20 decibels of gain. So this kind of does that for you, so you don't even need to buy a cloud lifter. Next is just a high pass filter. And then you got gain on the left side, you got trim on the other side from -10 to +10. Let's talk about that section first, and then I'm going to move to the EQ and the compression. So on that section, really, it's really straightforward, but the key about this is how clean that gain is. So I tracked, the other day I was tracking a source, a female singer, and she's quiet. She sings really gentle and really quiet. And I ran it through some other pre's if I gain it enough to get enough volume out of that singer, I ended up with a little bit more floor noise that I would want to, and a little bit more grid from the pre, because it's driving the mic a little too hot. Now with the Grace, I was able to do this, crank that gain, and I never had to worry about it. It's still super clean, it's still super transparent. Think of it this way. Think of it as a picture or a video in 1080 versus a video in 4K. That's kind of what the Grace felt like. It felt like I'm seeing it in higher resolution. It felt like if I was wearing glasses and somebody grabbed a fabric and then just kind of cleaned my glasses a little bit, so everything is a bit more transparent and a bit more crisp and clear, which is phenomenal. Now moving on to, they have an EQ and a compressor. So they have the EQ has low gain with low frequency, mid gain was mid frequency, and then Q, and then high gain was high frequency. It's either work as a bell or work as a shelf. And same for the low and the high, they both can work as a bell or a shelf. And then the mid has, it's only a bell with a Q. So it's a 3-band, really intuitive EQ. And then the compressor, it's a standard compressor with threshold, attack, release, ratio. And then obviously both EQ and compressor have engage or disengage. And then you get to choose, are you going EQ into compression or compression into EQ? And on the back of the unit, you got mic in, mic out. You also have line in and line out, which is really handy if you have a patch bay. And then I want to use that EQ and compressor, but without using the microphone pre. Then you go into the line in and line out, and then those become its own compression EQ that you can use it on different sources or even as hardware inserts in your software. So their EQ and their compression, they kind of follow the same protocol, which is really cool. It's a very transparent EQ. If we, for example, if I would choose a plugin, I would maybe say Fat Filter EQ, which I use that a lot in mixing, which is my go-to EQ if I want to clean something up but have no tone to it. And I'm not unlike, for example, a Pultec EQ or an SSL EQ, which have some character and tonal EQ. This is super transparent, super crisp, super clean. I can add a little bit top end or add a little bit bottom end. It's super crisp and clean. Same for the compression. It's that crisp and clean compressor to control my dynamics, which I really like because a lot of times, here's what I do. I take my vocal chain, the mic goes into that EQ. I like to do EQ first and then compression because I like to get rid of frequencies that I don't want before I start to compress them. I use these two first as my transparent EQ and compression to clean up a few things. If the source is a little bit too dark or too bright, apply some EQ, and then use the transparent compressor to control my dynamics. And then out of this into my patch bay, I actually end up going to my coloring compressors, which in this case, it would either be my 1176 or my 2A, whether if I'm going with opto or discrete, or even my API compressor, which have a lot of punch and some more color to it. And then my Pultec EQ, which has a bit more color as well, and then my saturation, all that kind of stuff. But it's such a very practical channel strip because it helps me to get my initial tone exactly how I want it to be before I do any form of coloration or extra processing, which that's what I love about the Grace. I've been looking for some pre's in my studio because my pre's are the 1073s and the 610. I used to have 710s. So they're all have some form of a character to it. And I was looking for something that like the SSL, and unfortunately my experience was the SSL 500 series, those little ones. They weren't that great. They're not like the SSL consoles, which I have not been able to find the same quality as SSL consoles and rack units. But this pretty much kind of did the job for me. I'm probably going to be getting some more, and I know they have different ones. They have, this is the channel strip, but they have some that are just mic pre's, which are really practical for studios if you're looking for clean source. Anyways, I hope this was a helpful, just a quick overview of that of that channel strip, quick overview of the features, what it does. My opinion, I've been using it for about 3 weeks now. I've used it on different sources, and so far it's been incredible, specifically on vocals and strings instruments, because those are the one that I was trying to go for more crisp and not much coloration. If I'm tracking drums, I would probably end up using the 1073 over this one, unless for my overheads. So my overheads, I use the Neumann 184s, which they're very transparent mics, and they feel like they have a lot of character to them. And I feel like sometimes when I run those to 1073, it feels a bit too much for the overheads. But using the Grace on this, it has that crisp overhead feel. You can hear the cymbals super crisp and super clean, but it's not exaggerated, and it really complements the 184s, the Neumann 184s mics. But anyways, this is what I'm applying. This is where I'm using it. This is probably a keeper for me. I'm keeping this one in my setup, and I'm probably going to be adding a bunch more as well. If this video was helpful, make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions about this pre or any of my setup, please put it in the comments. And if you need any help with console, studio routing, any of that stuff, shoot me an email. My email is in the description below, and I'll set up a consultation session with you. And I'll see you guys at the next video.